a short Masechta, but a very challenging one. This year they finished Rosh Hashanah, which is 35 blot. To do that basically just at night Seder with a few extra times of learning demonstrates their commitment to learning. And it certainly serves as a motivation for all of us to strive for that in just 1 hour a week with a little extra learning. There's a tremendous amount that we can accomplish, and I think there's really just no greater way to celebrate what all of us come every single week to do than by concluding with the siyum on Masechtas Rosh Hashanah. So without any further ado, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm going to go through like last year, just 1 or 2 minutes. Could be slightly difficult. The beginning of it starts, first parak, which is 14 daf, talks about these 4 basic things. The 4 different Rosh Hashanahs that there are. Kings and festivals is in Nisan. Maser Bechor is in Machlokas, whether it's Tishrei or Ella. Counting the year with Yovel and Shemitah is in Tishrei. And then the tree Rosh Hashanah is either an argument between the 1st or 14th of Shvat. Then they talk about what happens when a king dies, what happens when a king dies and who takes over, depending on when the king started or died. It's a big discussion that goes on for a long time, and the only reason this really matters about which king's going to take over when, if this one dies here, whether they start then or before, or confusing, because the king has to sign official documents, and then they say are non-Jews counted at the same time as Jews applying these rules to kings with taking over and things. And then they talk about Baal Tacher, which is a big discussion with Ari, which Ari's going to say after he finishes this, and then the effects of Shemitah and Yovel on us and how Yovel can be affected on our actions. And then they brought a big tangent on historical events to prove certain dates about when all the Avos were born, the Emos and other things like that to prove certain things. And then they spoke about Shemitah, where they say, just a cool thing, that usually if you have something growing when Shemitah starts, you can't harvest it and do anything with it, but if it's a third grown already, you're allowed to continue harvesting it and doing whatever you do with the things. And they talk about shofar, the first thing actually about Rosh Hashanah, why and when we do it. Rosh Hashanah, during Rosh Hashanah and Yovel and other times that you blow shofar, it's a big discussion between Rosh Hashanah and Yovel about what you do when and other things. What happens if can decrees be uprooted? One person says yes, one person says Jews yes, but for non-Jews no, and one says always you cannot uproot decrees. And then they talked about how you establish new Rosh Chodesh when you didn't have a set calendar ready, with the witnesses and how they let everybody know. There used to be fires on top of hills, and one person would light a fire and it'd go continuously, a lot of fires, and people would know it's Rosh Chodesh. And then these witnesses, the messengers who would see the new moon, can transgress Shabbos to go to the Beis Din to tell them. And then they also treat the witnesses very nicely. They give them a big meal, and they're allowed to travel more than most people are allowed to on Shabbos. And also the new topic they discuss about looking at pictures of moon, if it's okay, or other things. Then they talked about the types of shofars from kosher animals, which ones you use when, if you use for Rosh Hashanah from this animal or Yovel this animal. And then they talked about whether you need kavanah and while you're blowing the shofar, and if you can fulfill the obligation of other people by blowing the shofar. Then went into the decrees of Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai and ended with talking about davening of Rosh Hashanah, what you need to hear if you're in the field, which Ari is going to finish up.
All right. So briefly, we discussed this topic of Baal Tacher. Basically, what it is if something good happens to you, or you're chayav to bring a korban, a chatat or a shlamim, whatever it is, or just you decide that you want to thank God, like we spoke about last week. I remember someone spoke about last week about giving korbanos to God. Rabbi Horowitz spoke about it because it was the second half of the parsha, the optional korbanos. So you have a set time period. You have either the next chag, right, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, 3 chagim, 5 chagim, whatever it is. You have a set amount of time, and if you don't bring it by that time, you are over in the mitzvah of Baal Ta'achar. You have to bring it by that time, otherwise you transgress something. And it's very interesting because you could ask, like Rabbi Horowitz mentioned last week, that if it's optional, if I'm choosing to give something to God, I should be able to give it on my terms, right? It's my gift to God. How can He demand that I'm going to give you a gift, but I have to give it by a certain time? It's not really a gift anymore, it's more of an obligation. And so just two quick points on that. The first is that when you're giving a gift, you can't say, I'm going to give a gift, but I'll give it like next year or 3 years. If you don't give it by a certain time, so it's not really a gift anymore, it's more begrudgingly. Really, it's like, oh, I wanted to give it, but now I'm being forced to give it because oh, I have to. I don't really want to anymore, but I'm going to do it anyways. But the other really important thing about Baal Ta'achar is that once you set a goal for yourself, once you set out a mission or something you want to accomplish, you should set a timetable to accomplish that goal. Because if you don't set a timetable, so you may never accomplish it. You know, it doesn't just apply to korbanos; it applies to life in general. I think, you know, Moshe and I set out this year to accomplish Rosh Hashanah, and a little bit along the way we realized, you know, if we just learn nightseder, we're not going to finish. So we had to decide: are we just going to learn nightseder, or are we going to spend other time and accomplish our goal? And this is true about school and life and Gemara, definitely. That you have to set a goal and you have to set a timetable and you have to reach it. And when you do reach it, like we'll find out very soon, it's very sweet, it's very satisfying. And it's a great thing to do and to accomplish. And Moshe and I are graduating, so we're not going to be here next year. We're not going to be able to be here with you guys next year. I mean, I won't play stuff break now. We won't be here to celebrate with you guys next year at the end of nightseder, but it'd be really nice, I think, if somebody of the younger generations, of the younger kids would step it up and maybe learn Sefta or Seder Mishnah, something, you know, something nice, just to have something, a goal, a timetable, and to finish it in its timetable. So, without further ado, we're gonna start now at the beginning of the Tesla like Rabbi Horowitz wanted me to, but last few lines. So the final Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah was talking about a little bit about blowing of shofar, and Rabbi Gamliel had said that a shliach tzibor is mosi and a rabbi midei chovatzam. That the shliach tzibor can be mosi everybody. There's actually machlok whether each person has to blow themselves or whether shliach tzibor can blow for them. But on that topic, in that discussion of what Rabbi Gamliel said about the blowing of shofar, the Gemara says, "Poter hayar Rabbi Gamliel afilu am hasado." So he said that the guy in shul who's blowing shofar is even poter people who are in the fields, right? So now two things are interesting about that. One, the fact that people who aren't in the city, aren't listening, that are working in the fields, they're poter. And the second interesting thing that the Gemara picks up on is the usage of the word afilu, because afilu normally comes to include other things. So the Gemara has a question. He's not going to be chaya people who are in the city. Let's say you're in the city, you're just tired, you're at home. Hear the shofar. Don't hear the shofar. Look, the shofar tzibur can be motzi me. So is he not going to make that type of person chayav to come, that he's going to be fulfilled? So but here we have it's different. It's the opposite case. Why? Because hani anise, hani lo anise. But because the people in the fields, they're anusim. They are forced to be at work. They can't afford not to be. But people who are just lying at home, lazing around or on break, they don't have an excuse. They have to come, right? And we see a similar proof. This is Tani Abba Berei Dera Binyamin Barachia. Am Shachorei Kohanim Enam Bracha Klam B'Chol Bracha. Right? If the Kohen gets up to do Birkat Kohanim, and he's doing Birkat Kohanim, and you're behind him, not facing him, you are not Yosef the Bracha. Meaning he fulfills them, and he fulfills also. We know. Rashi says that he fulfills the people in the Sadeh. People who are in the fields, they're Yosef by Birkat Kohanim. But people who are behind him are not. Because the people who are behind him have a choice to be behind him or to be in front of him. The people in the field don't. And we say, Elo ki ata Rabbi Amar Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi Amar Rabbi Shimon Chisda Lo Pater Rabbi Gamliel Elo Amar Sadeh. But the Gemara reaches the conclusion, you're right, we're going to change that Rabbi Gamliel was only pointed to the people in the field. My time, what's the reason? Like we said, Mishum, Danis Melacha, because they are anusim because of malacha, abba b'ir lo. But in the city, they are not anusim because they're not working. They are free men.
Hadran alach Maseches Rosh Hashanah v'adrach alan Natana Allah Nesachas Rosh Hashanah v'adrach alan lo nisasei minach Nesachas Rosh Hashanah v'lo nasei minan lo ba'ama hadin lo ba'ama dase hadran Allah lach Nesachas Rosh Hashanah v'adrach alan Natana Allah Nesachas Rosh Hashanah v'adrach alan lo nisasei Nach Nesachas Rosh Hashanah v'lo sisasei minan lo ba'ama hadin lo ba'ama dase Drana lach Nesachas Rosh Hashanah v'adrach alan datan alach Nesachas Rosh Hashanah v'adrach alan lo nisasei minach Nesachas Rosh Hashanah v'lo sisasei minach lo ba'ama hadin lo ba'ama dase Yeratzon v'flanecha Adonai leina v'lei al-senu shetei sarsecha u'senu ba'olam hazeh u'sehi imanu v'olam haba Chanina bar Papa, Rami bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Achai bar Papa, Abba Mari bar Papa, Rafram bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Surcha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Daru bar Papa, Harevna Adonai Eloheinu Estevrei Sarasecha B'finu U'V'Fifos Amcha B'Yisrael V'Niyah Kulan Anachnu V'Tzeinu V'Tzeinu Amcha B'Yisrael Kulanu Yodei Shemecha V'Lomdei Sarasecha L'Shma Me'avei Ta'kameni Mitzvasecha Ki Le'olam Hi Yehei Libi Samim B'Chukecha L'man Lohen Evosh L'olam Lo Eshkach Pikutecha Kivam Chayis Ni Brochat Adonai Lamdin V'Chukecha Amen Amen Tzalaved Modem אנחנו נפנך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי ארצנו ששמת חלקנו ביושבי בית המדרש לא שמת חלקנו מיושבי קראנוס שאנו משקיעים בהם משקיעים אנו משקיעים לדברי תורה והם משקיעים לדברי תהילים אנו עמלים והם עמלים אנו עמלים ומקבלים שכר והם עמלים מקבלים שכר אנו רוצים והם רוצים אנו רוצים לחי העולם הבא והם רוצים לבאר שחס שנאמר ואתה אלוהים תורדים לבאר שחס אנשי דמים ומרמה לא יחצו ימיהם ואני אפתח בך ירצון לפניך אדוני אלוהי כשם שעזרתני לסיים מסכת ראש השנה כן תעזרני להתחיל מסכתות וספרים אחרים לסיים למלא וללמד לשמוע ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי סמוד תורתך באהבה זכות כל התנאים והאמרים ותלמידי חכמים יעמוד לי ולעזרי שלא סמוש התורה מפי ומפי זרי וזרע זרי עד עולם לסיס קיים בי בהיסהלך תנחה עושך בשפעך תשמור לך וקיצוצה יששכך כי בי ירבו ימיך ויוסיפו לך שנות חיים אורך ימים בימינה בשמאלה עושה וכבוד אדוני עוז עמו ייתן אדוני ברך השמות בשלום.